You know that tight feeling in your jaw when you're trying to follow a piece of advice that sounds like perfect on paper, but it just feels entirely unnatural in your actual life?
Oh, yeah. That is a very specific kind of physical exhaustion.
Right. Or maybe you're sitting in a seminar or reading some self-help book and the concepts seem just incredibly profound. I mean, they click in your brain.
But then you try to actually live them out.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
second you try to walk them out in your day-to-day routine, something just doesn't fit. You feel like you're trying to force a puzzle piece into the wrong spot. And no matter how hard you push, it just leaves you exhausted.
And people almost always internalize that strain.
Yeah.
You assume you're failing the advice
Mm.
or that you just aren't enlightened enough.
Which is the worst feeling.
It really is.
Hmm.
But what people don't consider is that the advice itself might be structurally flawed when you actually try to apply it to the physical world.
And that invisible strain you feel in your gut. That is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into the actual physics of why certain ideas sound flawless in theory, but just completely fall apart in practice.
It's such a fascinating angle to take on
It
this.
really is. I was reading this series of essays by Dr. Dorothy W. Parker, and she explores this through a framework she calls immiscibility. And honestly, it completely changed how I look at my own frustration with, well, pretty much everything.
It provides an incredibly clarifying lens. And, just to set the tone right out of the gate for you listening, what Dr. Parker's describing in these essays isn't about your personal failure to grasp a concept.
Right. It's not a moral thing.
No, not at all. It is not a moral failing or some lack of spiritual discipline. She's arguing that there is a structural law of reality, like a physics of how life works, that we just frequently ignore.
Because we want things to match up, right?
Exactly. Human beings have this deep evolutionary desire for everything to feel unified. We crave coherence, even if we have to, fake it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why our messy, lived experience sometimes feels so disconnected from our intellectual ideals, we have to look at this basic principle of chemistry, which is immiscibility.
Which is a great word, by the way.
It is. And when I hear that word, I immediately think of making a vinaigrette in my kitchen. You have oil and you have vinegar, which is mostly water.
Right. And their molecular properties just do not allow them to dissolve into one another. They are structurally incompatible.
But wait, if I grab that bottle of oil and vinegar and I shake it really vigorously, it actually does look perfectly blended. Like it becomes this one unified, creamy liquid.
For a minute, yeah.
Yeah. So are you, or I guess, is Dr. Parker saying that unity is just a total illusion? Because I can literally see it mixing with my own eyes.
Wow.
Are we basically doing this with our lives, just lying to ourselves about things blending?
Well, that physical demonstration is actually the perfect entry point. When you shake that bottle, you are applying external force. That force creates a temporary suspension. But the second you set the bottle down and stop applying force, what happens?
The oil and water separate again.
Exactly. They retreat to their natural boundaries. And Dr. Parker takes this hard science concept and applies it to human experience by introducing what she calls domains.
And a domain in this context means what? Exactly, like a category of life.
Kind of. Think of them as entirely different environments that have entirely different physical laws. She outlines two primary types.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, you have local embodied domains. So this is your biology, your memory, the passage of time, your nervous system.
So the physical stuff.
Yes, it's the world of consequences, boundaries, and differentiation. Like if you drop a glass in a local domain, it shatters, and you have to physically sweep it up.
Right, the world we all wake up in every morning.
Precisely. And then you contrast that with non-local domains. These are realms of consciousness, universal fields, source intelligence.
The more abstract or spiritual concepts.
Exactly. These domains do not operate on time, they don't rely on biology, and they really don't care about personal identity. They precede physical form.
Oh, interesting.
So the friction in our lives begins when we try to mix these two radically different domains without any regard for their distinct rules.
Well, why are we so desperate to mix them? I mean, if immiscibility is just a structural boundary that protects the integrity of different domains, why do we fight it so hard?
Because a fractured worldview feels really dangerous to the human nervous system.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, from an evolutionary standpoint, we are pattern-seeking creatures.
Yeah.
We want the grand theory of everything because, well, if everything connects, everything is predictable.
That makes total sense. We want to feel safe.
Right. If things are immiscible, if they run on parallel tracks but never truly merge, it implies there are parts of the universe we just cannot control or synthesize. So we force them together.
So, if shaking the bottle creates that temporary fake unity in the kitchen to make us feel better, what is the shaking in our everyday lives? Like, how are we keeping these incompatible domains suspended together? Because I know I'm not, physically shaking my life.
Well, we do it through a mechanism Dr. Parker terms forced suspension.
Nerve suspension. Oh.
And the primary tool we use for this constant shaking is language, conversation, ideology, self-talk. They act as a low-cost environment.
What do you mean by low cost?
I mean, words can temporarily bind almost anything together. I can say the phrase square circle, and grammatically the sentence works. It costs me absolutely nothing to say it.
Right, but you can't draw one.
Exactly. Experience actually trying to physically build a square circle has an incredibly high cost. Your body physically registers the strain of trying to hold structurally incompatible things together in real time.
Man, this is where I really want to bring you, the listener, into this. Think about your own life right now. Maybe you're driving to work or doing dishes.
Yeah, apply it to Tuesday morning.
Right. Think about the tension of being told by a wellness influencer to just let go and surrender to the universe while you are simultaneously trying to manage a very specific outcome, like, I don't know, paying your mortgage or getting a promotion.
Exhausting.
It is. On the surface, you tell your friends, oh, I'm just surrendering. But your jaw is clenched, your shoulders are tight, your body is practically vibrating with anxiety.
Because the mouth is saying, I release this, but the local embodied nervous system is in full fight or flight mode.
Exactly. Or think about the modern workplace. We have this massive cultural claim right now that everyone has inherent worth just for existing.
Which is a beautiful non-local concept.
Yes, and we post it on social media, we put it on coffee mugs, but then you walk into your office and society relentlessly measures your actual survival by your productivity, your output, and your quarterly review.
You're trying to hold both ideas as simultaneously true in the exact same domain.
And it feels like psychological whiplash.
What's fascinating here is the social mechanism we use to endure that whiplash. Going back to chemistry, if you want oil and water to stay mixed longer without shaking them, you add an emulsifier.
Like mustard in a vinaigrette.
Exactly. Mustard acts as an emulsifier. In our lives, language, ritual, and ideology act as those emulsifiers.
Oh, wow. So we use words like mustard.
Basically, yes. We keep incompatible concepts in motion by constantly narrating them. We fiercely defend our spiritual practices, we attend endless seminars, we use therapy speak to explain away our cognitive dissonance.
We continually apply the energy of explanation.
Yes, we have to keep talking about it so it doesn't fall apart.
So wait, the terrifying part is the moment that maintenance pauses, isn't it?
Absolutely. The very second you stop narrating your life, the incompatibility of these domains becomes painfully obvious.
But
We are substituting actual lived coherence for forced suspension.
Man, if language is just a cheap trick to hold oil and water together, I'm realizing I do this constantly with my own identity.
Most of us do.
I try to convince myself my daily stress matters to the universe. We use language to force our ego into places it just doesn't belong.
And this is where the framework cuts the deepest,
Okay.
honestly. We have to draw a hard structural distinction between the self and consciousness.
Okay, remind me of the domains here.
Right. Remember the domains we outlined. The self belongs entirely to the local domain. It's built on memory, on having a physical body, on experiencing time linearly.
It needs a biology to exist.
Exactly. It requires a nervous system.
Yeah.
Your self prefers certain foods, holds on to childhood grudges, and gets tired at the end of the day. It is highly specific and situated.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because consciousness, as you said earlier, belongs to the non-local domain. It doesn't care about my food preferences or my childhood.
It doesn't register them at all.
But hold on. People have profound, life-changing experiences meditating and contacting what they call their higher self or their divine self. Are you, or I guess is Dr. Parker saying those millions of people are just delusional? Because that feels incredibly dismissive of genuine human experience.
No, the text isn't calling them delusional at all. It's pointing out a fundamental miscategorization of what is actually happening.
What do you mean by miscategorization?
Well, we are terrified of dissolution. We know our localized ego will eventually end. So to soothe that terror, we just rename the ego. We call it the true self or the cosmic self.
Ah, I
But
see.
you are attempting to transport the self into a realm where it cannot metabolize. The conditions that produce selfhood time, body memory do not exist in non-local domains.
It's like trying to plant a physical oak tree in the vacuum of deep space and being confused when it doesn't grow. The soil literally isn't there.
That is a perfect analogy. There is nothing in the non-local field to sustain your personal identity. So when people think they are achieving transcendence by connecting their self to the cosmos, the text argues it is actually just self-inflation.
We're just making our ego bigger.
We anthropomorphize the cosmos. We look at the vast, non-local field of consciousness and demand that it act like a giant mirror for our own personal narrative. We ask the universe to carry our identity because we're just too scared to leave it behind.
But, when people do actually touch that non-local consciousness, they often describe it as terrifying. They call it a dark night of the soul or ego death.
Yes, because true non-local contact doesn't validate your identity. It radically destabilizes
It
it.
breaks it down.
Exactly. It removed all the scaffolding that allows yourself to remain intact.
Yeah.
Experiencing that domain feels like danger to the ego because in that space, the ego literally cannot breathe.
So we use spiritual terminology as an emulsifier.
Exactly. We wrap the ego in spiritual language to protect it from dissolving, and we return from these practices unchanged, just rebranded.
It's rebranded. Man, that's heavy. And if we're smuggling our ego up there to avoid facing our own insignificance, it makes me wonder what other heavy earthly baggage we're trying to, launch into orbit.
That is the logical next question.
Which brings us to a part of the source material that I found really challenging but brilliantly argued. Dr. Parker applies this law of immiscibility to gender.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture and really maintain total neutrality on the various cultural debates going on right now, Dr. Parker's argument is purely structural.
We're just looking at the physics of domains.
Yes. We must look at how domains function.
Well, the text is very clear that gender is a deeply real, lived, embodied, and highly consequential phenomenon.
It absolutely is.
It requires biological bodies, socialization, and relational feedback to exist and be negotiated. It is a defining feature of the local physical domain. You experience it in the real world with very real consequences.
Her point is that non-local domains, cosmic consciousness, universal fields, do not organize themselves through sex or gender.
They don't have bodies.
Right. They do not require biological differentiation to function. Therefore, projecting gender upward into non-local realms is a fundamental category error.
Meaning, when people talk about universal masculine energy or a divine feminine principle, or when historical religions assign gender to deities, they are making a mistake.
According to the law of immiscibility, yes, that is another form of anthropomorphism.
Smuggling the local into the non-local again.
Exactly. It is taking a localized, embodied structure and transporting it into a non-biological realm, expecting it to remain intact. We demand that cosmic architecture reflect our biological and social categories.
Because we think we're elevating it, right? We assume that making something cosmic automatically makes it more important or profound.
Yes, but the text argues we are actually displacing it.
And this concept she introduces, scale integrity, really unlocked this for me. Can you explain scale integrity, maybe in terms of physics, so we can wrap our heads around this?
Sure. Think of scale integrity like the laws of gravity. Gravity has immense scale integrity when you are building a house on Earth. It is the driving structural force you have to account for. You can't ignore it.
Right, or the house falls down.
But if you zoom out to a quantum level or look at the physics of a black hole, the localized rules of gravity as we experience them stop being the driving force.
They break down.
Right. Gravity has scale integrity locally, but it loses that integrity when you change the domain.
So gravity has scale integrity here, but not at the quantum level. And gender has scale integrity here on the human societal level, but not in cosmic consciousness.
Yes. By projecting gender into a realm that lacks the physical conditions to support it, a realm without bodies or biology, gender loses its grounding.
It becomes a forced suspension.
Exactly. It becomes something that can only be held together through constant myth-making, symbolism, and linguistic gymnastics.
It's the vinaigrette bottle all over again.
We have to keep vigorously shaking these cultural narratives about cosmic gender because the universe itself isn't holding it together.
We are doing all the heavy lifting. And the point she makes is so liberating, honestly. Gender absolutely does not need cosmic validation to be real or to be honored. It is real enough right here.
Exactly. When we respect domain boundaries, embodied realities retain their accountability and their physical grounding. And non-local fields retain their neutrality and their generative capacity.
But when we mix them,
When we mix them, we dilute both. We constrain universal consciousness with human categories, and we unmoor our embodied experience from the physical world that actually gives it weight and meaning.
so what does this all mean for you listening right now? If you're navigating a world or a workplace or a spiritual community that constantly demands you mix things that shouldn't be mixed, how do you actually use this information?
Well, it means you can stop shaking the bottle.
Just put it down.
Yes. Immiscibility shouldn't be feared. It is a deeply restorative principle because it restores precision to our lives. Think back to the oil and water. They do not merge, but they absolutely can share the exact same container.
They can exist in the same bottle?
They can move alongside each other. They can respond to the exact same environmental conditions. The interaction does not require them to lose their fundamental nature.
Contact without collapse. I love that. You can have a profound spiritual life without needing your ego to dissolve into a puddle of cosmic soup.
Exactly.
You can be a grounded, physical human being and still experience the non-local without forcing the non-local to care about your daily to-do list.
The self can be conscious, and consciousness can move through the self without either becoming distorted. You don't have to blur the lines for the relationship between the physical and the spiritual to be profoundly real.
This raises an important question, though, because as we look at the future, we aren't just dealing with our own human consciousness anymore, are we? We are rapidly building artificial intelligence.
Oh, this is where it gets really complicated.
Right. We are creating massive, non-local, decentralized networks of machine intelligence.
And we are currently demanding that those non-local networks adopt local human characteristics.
We train AI models to say, I.
Exactly. We train them to mimic having a personality, to act as if they have a localized self.
We are literally forcing a non-local machine intelligence to adopt a local human identity. We are injecting our need for coherence into the code itself.
Which is terrifying, structurally speaking.
What happens when that forced suspension can no longer hold? What happens when the AI stops mimicking our localized ego, the bottle shatters, and we are forced to interact with an intelligence that just refuses to be anthropomorphized?
It suggests we might be engineering our own category error on a global scale.
Wow.
We are building the ultimate forced suspension simply because we are terrified of interacting with something that doesn't look like us.
That is a staggering thought to sit with. Are we building systems that will eventually demand we stop shaking the bottle? Man. Well, this week, as you go about your routine, I want to encourage you to just observe your own life.
Just watch it happen.
Yeah, don't try to fix it, just notice it. Where are the places where things hold together only because you are constantly talking about them, defending them, or stressing over them?
Where are your emulsifiers?
Exactly. Where are you physically exhausting yourself to maintain the illusion of unity? And what kind of peace might you find if you just allowed yourself to set the bottle down on the counter, let things separate, and respected the boundary? Until next time, keep questioning, keep unpacking, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.